right, everybody. Welcome to the Debate Politics AMA with Larry Sharpe. Larry Sharpe is an American business consultant, entrepreneur, political activist, and podcaster. He was a candidate for the Libertarian Party nomination for Vice President of the United States in 2016, losing to former Massachusetts Governor Bill Weld. Sharpe was the Libertarian nominee for the governor of New York in the 2008 gubernatorial election. He again received that party's gubernatorial nomination for the 2022 New York gubernatorial election. This is an AMA for Larry Sharpe, and Larry Sharpe will be taking your questions. If you wish to be added to the queue, simply raise your hand to be invited to the stage. Note to remain respectful to our guest, and we can allow up to 2 additional follow-up questions, including your initial questions, giving you a total of 3 questions. Now, let's get this underway. I do have an initial question here for you that was presented. Seeing as how America has received a large influx of immigrants, mostly from Latin America and Asia since the 1970s, is this immigration a bad thing for libertarian politicians and libertarian goals, seeing as how most immigrants, except a few exceptions, tend to vote for big government Democratic politicians and are more likely to support gun control?
There's 2 parts to that. One is first generation, the questioner is correct. Second and third generation, not as true. Once immigrants move to second and third generation, they tend to break down very similar to Americans in general, right? Many of them do. In fact, the second and third generation many times actually move more libertarian because very often they move into an entrepreneurial mindset. And most people who are in the entrepreneur section of our economy, I don't think it's a majority. I don't think I have any data to prove that it's a majority. But I do believe the plurality of people who are in the entrepreneurial space lean libertarian. So I think second generation, that's not actually true. First generation, I think the question is correct. For the first part of the question, is it helpful or harmful to libertarians? It's a great question. The problem is the way they're coming across the border now. The system is set up to where they come across and they're not really allowed to work. I mean, they are, but they're not. It's illegal. They're in the black market. Everything is going poorly, right? I know my state in New York, farmers and hospitality industry literally spends millions of dollars every year, if not billions every year, getting undocumented workers to come to New York State because we need them. And they're all in the black market. So it makes everything bad for all of us. Libertarians in general, and there are some exceptions, obviously, libertarians in general are about vibrant immigration. We want lots of immigration. What most people don't realize is there was a time when many people would come across our border, work, and then go home. Well, then we closed the border. Now they couldn't go home anymore. So what did they do? They brought their families. And so our bad policies made the problem far worse. We need to have a different system. I've spoken about a system before in the past. The advantage to libertarians is we actually have answers where the left and right don't. How do I know that to be true? Because for 40 or 50 years, we've been fighting about immigration. Democrats have been in charge, Republicans have been in charge of all 3 branches, and never has there been a solution. The answer that I brought up in the past is we need to have multiple Ellis Islands, I say at least 2, on the southern border. 1 in Texas and 1 in California, I think off the bat. Both of them should be run by private companies. And what kind of companies? Recruiting companies. Companies that right now are recruiting, what they do for a living. They recruit, they make money on recruiting. Right now, the recruiting is done in the black market. I'd rather be done in the regular market. You have 2 different ones there, and all the government does is lease out the land. So the government makes money off of this, right? Because they take money from the companies who lease the land out. They then build their own Ellis Islands, which they'll do happily. After they build the Ellis Islands, they will then bring people in. If you want to come to our country, go to the Ellis Island, be there for whatever is the quarantine time. I don't know if it's 2 weeks, a month, whatever is the time. They'll figure this out. Make sure the person's not a bad guy, not a bad gal. Make sure the person doesn't have a disease or whatever the issue is. Give them an orange card, which gives them 2-year work visa to go work in any state that opts in. States want to opt out, let them opt out. I think it's crazy to opt out, but I believe in localism. If you want to opt out, opt out. And then they'll go there, they'll work. They can't get any public assistance while they're here for 2 years. They must check in every 2 years. They now become legal. As that happens, you will see many things happen. Number one, we've got about 12 million, give or take, undocumented workers in the states now. It is impossible to get them all. We don't have the money, the bodies, the time to do so. A bunch of those people are going to say, wait a minute, I can just go to the Ellis Island and become legal? Yes, they'll go. They'll just go. And the people who they'll be making money, right? The Ellis Island will be making money from those people. They'll pay whatever, $500 or whatever is the fee to become legal. You might go, Larry, it's a lot of money for these people. No, it isn't. They're literally spending thousands of dollars right now on coyotes all day long. Not just that, there are companies that want them here. They're paying it in the black market. They'll just pay the recruiting company. So this will absolutely function to get people in legally. People who are here illegally now will then come in and they will literally go there and they will become legal. What does that mean? That means now, of all the people coming across the border, most of them are hardworking people. That's true. And there are some of them that are bad people. Of course, bringing bad things, doing bad things, gang members and such. Those people exist. Those people aren't going to go to the Ellis Island because they're bad guys, which means now our current Border Patrol can just spend their time not babysitting families coming across the border, instead just getting bad guys. Much more effective. On top of that, some of those people who are here are also bad guys. Well, the police forces can't get them. Why? They are stuck right now in small enclaves surrounded by good immigrants who can't say anything because they'll get deported. But once those good immigrants start becoming legal, when the cops want to say, hey, where's bad Pablo? Good Pablo says, bad Pablo's right there, go get him. And now we can get the bad guys and have a safer environment for everybody. So I think that can be done. Only libertarians bring this idea up. So the issue is, well, wait a minute, Larry, are you so super smart? You're the only guy who thought of an idea? Of course not. No one else wants to fix it. Well, Larry, I don't like your idea. Awesome. Now, if you put me in debate stage, we can talk about your idea. Where's the Democratic idea? None. Where's the Republican idea? None. I will give you an actual idea. We can talk about it, have an actual debate. It's the value of a third party or a libertarian being in the debate, being in the fray. I went long, I'm sorry, but I hope I answered your question.
It was very good, very good. If anybody wants to raise their hand, they can do so right now, and I will go ahead and invite you in. If not, then I can present a question. Okay, it looks like we got a text question. And we also have biodrugs, so I'm going to go ahead and queue up the questions here. What was it like raising funds without the backing of major PACs and major companies?
It was insanely hard. You are absolutely correct. Most PACs do not support libertarians. Most PACs are run by Republicans, Democratic donors. And so, yes, and that's how they buy the polling. That's how they buy the ads. That's how they buy coverage. Sadly, everything is pay to play, and the average person doesn't know that. So yeah, it's very hard. So it means I have to be on the phone and making things happen. I raised $500,000 the first time I ran. Now, for a Democrat or Republican, that's nothing. That's a joke. My opponent raised $6 million, Republican opponent, Democratic opponent raised $12 million in 2018. In 2022, I raised $400,000. The Republican raised $13 million. Democrat raised $22 million. So for a third party, $500,000 is a lot of money. Against those guys, it's a joke. So what do I have to do? I have to have actual answers and a way to show value. What does that mean? Most people who vote for any third party, me included, realize the odds of my victory are super slim. Could I win? Yes. I don't want to jinx it. It is possible. Jesse Ventura won in the 90s. Anything can happen. Somebody wins the lottery. Obviously, I hope that person's me. But the reality of it is we know that the odds of my victory are super slim. Okay. So why give me money? Why support me? They have to hope that I can be a good enough messenger that I'll get the message out and change the discord, change the back and forth, change the conversation. If you do that well enough, people will give you money if they believe that. If they don't believe it, they don't give you money. So you have to be able to find the right people, make big asks, which I do, go out, meet people, shake hands, be very active. When I run for office, I don't work. I only run for office, nothing else. That's my full-time job. It's the only way I can raise any money whatsoever. It is super challenging. And there's another important piece. Most people don't know this, and some of your audience may be surprised. When I first ran in 2018, I was the nominee officially. I was on the ballot. I had been on big TV shows. I'd done stuff, but I wouldn't get in the polls. I couldn't get in the polls. And I didn't understand why. So my team literally called the polling company, said, why is Larry Sharpe not in the polls? Why are you not putting him in the polls? Now, I knew it was going to poll at 50%, but I thought I should be in the poll. I mean, I'm on the ballot. Why am I not in the poll? Even if I'm getting 2% or 5% or whatever I was getting, right? Why wouldn't I be in the poll? And they were very forward. They said, oh, you don't buy the poll. We said, what? Yeah, buy the poll. We'll put you in the poll. Oh, okay. How much does the poll cost? $40,000? How is a small party going to afford $40,000? Well, that's one reason to start calling people and asking for money. I guess it's something, but really hard, right? So I'm not in the poll, not because I'm not valid. I'm not in the poll because I don't buy the poll. Now, the point that the questioner asked about the PACs are the ones who buy the polls. So Democrats put up several $1 million to a PAC. Republicans put several $1 million in the PAC. And then those people, those PACs, buy the polling. And they put who they want in. For those of you who like RFK Jr., if there's anybody here watching who likes RFK Jr., he wasn't in polls. Why? He wasn't buying them. The Democratic establishment was buying the polls. And of course, they want the poll to look official. So they put everybody else in the poll and they don't put RFK in the poll. They pay for that. They go, here's the polling. Don't put RFK. Here's $100,000. Go do it. Do the poll. Everyone else pops up under 5%. And then Biden comes up at 60-some-odd%. Why? There's no RFK Jr. The average person doesn't know that, doesn't get that. They think, wow, RFK Jr. must not be polling at all because he's not in the poll. Oh, it's who buys the poll. So it's pay to play. But it isn't just that. I also was saying to myself, all right, I'm running around New York State, doing events, meeting people, providing policy questions and answers, whether you like them or not. I am doing it. I'm doing the thing I'm supposed to do. So why am I not being covered? We went to the newspapers and to the TV stations. Why are you not covering me? They were very forward. You don't buy ads. What? You don't buy ads. Buy ads will cover you. Pay to play. So these PACs, this questioner asked about, the PACs do that too. They buy ads. So they'll buy ads, and because of how the law works, if someone is a Republican and they have a Republican PAC, if they actually do an ad about that specific Republican saying, Republican Joe is great because this and that, they might be attacked as colluding, right, or coordinating with that candidate, and that's against the law. You can't do that. So what must they do? All they can do is negative ads. So instead of saying Republican Joe is so good, they say Republican Jane is evil. She's terrible, so horrible. They do that instead. And that's why they do it, because that's how they can do it. And now once they buy it, they basically are telling the people who they're dropping $1 million on, now cover my guy. I want you to cover my guy. And they do. So it's also pay to play. So the questioner is correct. It's one of the reasons why third parties are so hard to move forward. It's why nobody runs third party, because you don't have the cash to be effective in our current system. You've got to be able to raise 6 figures, 7 figures to be effective. You've got to have PACs behind you. And the only way you do that now is 2 ways. One, get on podcasts that there's no tomorrow. And then because of that, become more popular. If you're more popular, you raise more money.
Yeah, you were
Being
on
popular
Joe Rogan, right?
is more important. I was on Rogan. I was on Glenn Beck. I was on Dave Rubin.
That's great.
I was on a bunch of them. Yes.
I remember that as well. Like I saw like one of the ballots. I don't know if this existed in every single precinct, but I remember one of the ballots where Cuomo had about 5 or 6 different party positions with his name basically reprinted about 5 or 6 times and pushed your name off into the next column, which made it seem
Correct.
like you weren't running at all.
Yes.
I think I still have that picture. I won't take up too much of the time, but I'll post that picture in the chat so you could see it. And so did he just like pay $40,000 for each one of those seats, or?
Yes. Let me explain how that works in New York State and why they did it. Yes. New York State's what's called a fusion state. There were very few fusion states in the country. We are the only one who actually uses it normally. I think there's like 6 who could do it like us, but only we do it this way, which is any party that's a party can put anybody on their line. So if there are 4 parties, you can put more with one person on that line. People used to just buy parties. That's correct. They would just take $500,000 and say, let me buy a party line. And they'd make a party up. I'm not even joking. They'd say, we're going to make a stop the trains party. Done. And then Cuomo paid for it, so Cuomo goes on the line. So he'll be listed 3 or 4 or 5 times. Now, the concept that's supposed to be good about this, which they don't use at all, is you can now make specific issue parties. Theoretically, that's amazing, right? I wanna get Medicare for all in New York State. You make a Medicare for all party. Everybody sees it. Who wants Medicare for all? Checks that. You know, I wanna bring gun rights back to New York State. Guns rights are great. Party, but boom, doom, whatever's your issue, you can do it. So in theory, that's awesome. In practice, it's garbage. It's what you just said. All they actually do is buy lines, put their name on multiple lines, And they did so many of them to make sure that I was the only candidate on the same line as somebody else. And some machines on the same line, which was a separate column. I was the only one on column 2. Some machines were not reprogrammed to read the second column. So all of those were blank who voted for me on those machines got a blank vote.
Oh, wow.
So yes. So I got 100,000 votes legally. But in reality, because of the polling we did, I probably got 250,000 votes. And I said, Larry, why didn't you sue? Because I didn't win, right? If I thought that I had won the election, right? If I believed that, I would have sued.
Then you'd sue, yeah.
But yeah, why would I sue to say, well, I didn't get 2%, I got 6%, which is still good. I'm happy with what I got, but it wasn't the victory. Why would I raise money to go sue? Why would I waste people's donors' money? I'd rather take the money I get donated to me and spend it someplace that makes sense on a secondary run or something else.
So the next one we have is Biodrug. So we're going to go ahead and invite Biodrug to the chat. So come on down, Biodrug. You are being invited to the chat. The next one will be Glasscut. And then I will invite B ... I'm assuming that's a privacy thing. And I see Manuel.
Okay. Hi, Larry. First of all, thank you for actually coming to the server for this Q&A. I was looking at LarrySharpe.com to view the policies you actually wish to push for if you should become the governor. I very much really like the policies you advocate for the criminal justice reform.
Thank you.
And your position on legalizing cannabis, no problem. But there was one particular interest that I had looking through your policies, and that was your motorcycle rights policies. Now, on it, you advocate for licensed riders to be able to ride without helmets, and you state as well that preferential vision can be affected by the bike helmets, but you also acknowledge that the helmets do increase the likelihood of survival. This being the case, wouldn't it just make more sense to ensure that the motorcyclists still wear the helmets, as it's been proven to reduce fatality with head injuries, but also advocate for helmets that addresses your concern with preferential vision, such as open face helmets?
Yes, it does make sense. I agree. And if I were to ride a motorcycle, I absolutely would use a helmet. And I think the vast majority of cyclists would actually motorcycle riders would actually use helmets. My issue is a freedom one, right? I want people to be as free as they can possibly be. That's what I want. I'm libertarian. So I think you're right. And while I would advocate for that law to go away so you'd have the option, I would also use the bully pulpit to say, put a damn helmet on, man. What's wrong with you? I would still do that because you're correct. The issue is just because I think it's right doesn't mean I should pass a law to make you do it, right? Because once you do that, you start moving down a terrible road, which we saw in New York State. We saw in New York State basically people forcing children to get vaccinated when parents didn't want children to get vaccinated. We found that happening in every part of our life. You can't go to work. You can't go to school. You can't do this, all in the name of safety. Now, do I think that you should vaccinate your children? Of course. Do I think you should be safe when it comes to viruses and whatever the case may be? Of course. Of course. But do I think government should have the right to tell you that? No. You might go, but Larry, people will die. Well, here's my response to that. Two things. One, freedom is important, no matter what. And people don't seem to have a problem sending soldiers overseas and having them die all day long for our freedom. That's fine. Having them being broken with PTSD all day, that's fine. Having them come back with traumatic brain injury, that's fine. That's all good. We can do that all day long. And when they come back, treat them like garbage and destroy them. That's okay. No worries on that one. But this is a problem. But I'll go even further. Even further. What happens when the government's wrong? What happens when they're wrong? And in many cases, and you see with the lockdowns that happened, we're finding out now, they were wrong. And the damage done to our children from the lockdowns was worse than any virus could have possibly done for our children. The government was wrong. And millions of people paid the price for that. Sorry, they did, but no government official is going to pay any price whatsoever for it. So you are correct in what you're saying, but I can't in my own mind say government has the right to tell you to do this because government will so often be wrong. Instead, use the bully pulpit. Instead, use common sense. Instead, use your example, your community to make people do the right thing. Because if I choose to wear a helmet, I'll always wear it. If I don't choose to wear it, I'm not going to wear it anyway. I'm going to wear it half-ass. You see it all the time. I'm going to have it hang at the back. You see it all the time. I need people to want to be safe and to see that I'm valuable. We are already right now across America losing trust on institutions. This is not a good thing, right? We should trust our institutions. We don't. We don't trust our FBI. We don't trust our school system. We don't trust our doctors. We don't trust our institutions. This is not a good thing for a nation. We should. And we do that by not using force, but by being the most important thing, being a trustworthy central repository for information. And we are not that.
Yeah, I totally understand sort of the ideological argument for freedom. And you know what, I can sort of like understand like why, there's, hints of skepticism when it came to like the vaccine rollout during the pandemic to a degree, right? But we do have decades of research of just like how efficient like helmets are when it comes to like riders on the bikes anyway. And in the UK, we have Sharpe, which is the safety helmet assessment and rating program, which shows that 80%, like when it comes to injuries with motorcycles, 80% of injuries are reduced, fatalities are reduced because of helmets. To me, I don't see it as much of a freedom argument when it comes to that safety for bikers, because I can understand maybe with the vaccines where you're concerned about your body, your choice autonomy.
Brother, I'm not fighting you on any of your data. I think you are 100% correct. No argument on your data. But I have two issues. Number one, once I say yes to that, is government going to stop there? Almost always no. That's just not what government does. Once you give the opportunity, it keeps going. Now they're going to tell you, well, you know what? We figured out that if you skydive, the odds of you dying are higher than anything else. So now skydiving is illegal. That is what, you have to have a specialized license the state has to give you if you ever skydive ever, and it's going to cost you $20,000. So now only rich people can kill themselves and poor people can't, right? That's going to be the way the government does that. So again, now I'm not fighting your data. I think you're right. I would never ride a motorcycle without a helmet. And if anyone I love, I'd say, don't do it. It doesn't mean I have the right to use the force of government to do that. And then by extension, do the next two or three things. What happens? We're doing it in New York State already. What happens when New York State says, eating meat is not good for you? So now you can't buy meat. And you might think I'm joking. That's happening in New York City now. They are literally looking at people who are on public assistance, how much meat they eat. They're monitoring it now, so it can tell you how much meat you can buy. And what is the logic? Well, meat is not good for you. And maybe it is or maybe it isn't, right? But that isn't the point. The government cannot tell you how much meat you eat. That all comes from the concept of it's safe, look at the data. It's safe, look at the data. I don't care. If you want to eat meat, the government should not tell you not to. And I'll give you an example of this. In New York City, I'm doing New York because I live in New York and I ran across the state. If you go back 20 years, you would stretch to find a vegan restaurant in New York City. You'd have to look for one. Now, every other corner. Where's the law saying you have to be vegan? There is none. What happened is people saw the value in it. They believed it was the right thing. Now, you may or may not like vegan. I'm not a vegan. But the point is, people have decided it's right for them. And what's happened? They've become vegan on their own. And veganism is a stronger movement because government did not get involved. Now, you may say, Larry, how do I know that? Let me give you another example in New York City. New York City Mayor Bloomberg tried to outlaw sodas that are over 16 ounces because drinking sugary sweets is bad for you. And by the way, that's a fact. What he said was scientifically correct. Drinking more sugary drinks and having bigger ones is unhealthy for you. That is absolutely a fact. You should not do it for your health. But he tried to ban them. What happened? Everyone started drinking big 16-ounce sodas to say, go to hell. And years later, 15, 20 years later, if you look in stores now, what do you find? The small cans. That has become popular now. Bloomberg's use of force slowed down the adoption of drinking less sugary drinks. So his force made us unhealthier. If you just let it happen like veganism, people would have started drinking smaller, less sugary drinks. Why? You can see it already.
No, yeah. Just a final question, then follow up, and then I'll be finished with my end. You could, yeah. I do understand the concern about the stretch to the government, but you could theoretically, and we do this in the UK with several departments in the media, and again, even with the motorcyclists, you could set up independent bodies which could regulate this without such government intervention within it. So, if you were more sort of concerned about the actual policies that Parliament, or in your case, the White House pushes through. You could just make that governmental body just do that on behalf with experts within that field to push that policy through. It's just for me, I again I understand the freedom sort of argument, but considering the fact that the data is very strong on this, that it saves lives, having helmets to reduce fatality. I just don't see why not. We don't push it as a society just to make sure that we are,
Hold
that we're
on.
safe.
I think we should push it as a society. I think we have, right? Look at children. I don't know how old you are, but I'm in my 50s. When I was a kid, nobody, not one kid ever wore a helmet on a bike. Never. That was not a thing. Nobody wore it. We all rode our bikes around. Nobody wore a helmet ever. There was no law that made people wear helmets on bikes. Now, most people riding a bike have a helmet. I don't know where you live, but where I live in New York City, most people put on a helmet when they ride a bike. There was no law involved in that. I think we do push it, and we should. I told you I would absolutely advocate it. If I was governor, I would advocate for it. I would talk about it. I think it's exactly the right answer. Once you let government in the door, they have never done it right. And I mean never. They have failed and people push back. People still fight helmet laws. Still they fight helmet laws. With all the data you said, why are they fighting helmet laws? It's not because they disagree with you. It's not. It's because the hell what you telling me what to do. That's why they're fighting. It's not because if you ask a guy who doesn't wear a helmet, he's not going to tell you you're wrong. He's going to say, you can't tell me what to do. That's what he's going to say. So stop telling him what to do, and he'll wear the damn helmet.
Thank you anyway, though, Larry. That's my three questions. I very much appreciate
Thank you.
it.
We will go ahead and move on to the next person will be Glasscut. So let me get Glasscut up here. Glasscut, come on down.
Hello, people. So, my question is not really simple, but it's a short question. Are you for a digital media reform in the US? And if so, how would you do that?
I don't know what a digital media reform is.
Okay, so digital media. That is basically all the digital media you have. When you go from the word media, you say, things you see with your eyes, things that other people give to you to information to
You mean social media?
Yeah, social media. No, not even social media, but also newspapers. Just digital accessible media.
Okay.
You could ask follow-up questions.
I'm
be a
trying
back
to
and
figure
forth
out
if you
what you're
want.
asking me. It's a very generic question.
Well,
So
it is, yeah.
I'm trying to can you hone it down a little bit for me?
Well, social media in general is it is free and all, but a lot of false information is spread. And corruption is a big thing.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay.
That's where I'm going with.
Here is what I think would be a good answer in general, right? Because your question's broad, so I'll give you a broad answer. And if you want to hone me down, you can. If your social media platform is free and open to the public, if it is free and open to the public, all of your algorithms must be transparent. Everything must be transparent. Every algorithm, everything you do must be transparent. Period. Because if your social media platform is free, then the people you're selling are the people you're using, right? That's your product. I'm your product if it is free. So it must be 100% transparent. However, if you have to pay to get there, that is considered a private institution. You do not have to make everything transparent. I think just doing that would make a lot of things better. If you actually were able to look in and be completely transparent for the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Instagrams of the world and all of those other ones, if it's free, it's transparent. If it's not transparent, government can shut it down because you have to be transparent if you're going to let people come on there for free and let everybody on. So I think that is a reform that I think is libertarian and I think savvy and smart. And I think it will help people in general.
Very good. Thanks.
Okay. And you wanted to go ahead and okay, he did want to just leave it to the one question. Okay.
The one thing that many of you might notice is I'm the rare libertarian who I don't spend much time talking about libertarian ideology. I do here or there, but most of the time you'll see me try to actually give you an actual answer. I think the strength of any third party, whether it's Forward, Libertarians, Greens, whatever it is that if you can't give an actual policy answer, you're finished.
So,
And it's not fair. Democrats and Republicans, all they have to do is go other guy bad. Democrats say Republicans are bad, Republicans say Democrats bad. That's the entire debate. But if you're a third party, you have to have an answer or you will get zero respect. Nothing. So that's why I always try to give actual answers.
So next person I have here is AJ, or AJ's Legotia. I need to know whether or not if you want to come up to speak because you're raising your hand. I hear this question here and I don't really understand it. It says, what does Larry think about Moloch given his Libertarian Party membership? Here, I'll just invite you to speak, I suppose, because I don't get that question at all.
I don't know who Moloch is. Is that like, is it Moloch like a demon or something?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
The question, so I was gonna ask Larry, sorry if this is a kind of an uninformed question. Are you currently running towards any positions of government?
No, not now. I ran last year. I got sued off the ballot by the Republican Party of New York State because they didn't want any competition they wanted to make sure they came in second, and they did. So I guess they won. So no, I'm not running for anything right now.
I wanted to ask if you have plans to run in the future in New York. Do you have any plans to do anything or communicate with the Hasidic community? I know you said you lived in New York, and the Hasidic community is becoming increasingly mentioned in the media, especially after with the scandal at Yeshiva University. And I wanted to know if you do become elected, if you have any plans to move forward with this community, if you're going to continue to communicate with our independent government organizations, such as our hospitals and ambulances and things like that. And if you have any positions on this.
100%. So, you meant Moloch, that guy. Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's clear. Now that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. Yes. The Hasidic community in New York State is big in a couple counties. It's biggest in Rockland County right now, I know, and Brooklyn. Those two big. It's all over, right? You can find Hasidic communities throughout many parts of New York State. But two big chunks are Rockland County and Brooklyn. Those are your two biggest chunks that I know of, at least. And yes, a lot of people get mad when I support the Hasidic community because some people don't like what the community does. They think they don't take care of their kids the way they want them to take care of their kids, or they don't do the things they want people to do. And I'm libertarian. So I say, if a local community wants to run a local community the way it wants to, as long as it's not physically hurting people, why would I care either way, right? I don't think it's that big of a deal to move forward. Plus, the more important piece here is the First Amendment is not just freedom of speech. It is also freedom of the press and freedom of assembly and freedom of religion. So if I'm going to support the Bill of Rights, which I do, I have to also allow the Hasidic community to have religious exemptions, to be able to assemble as they see fit. So I'm not Jewish. I have no personal connection to the Hasidic community. But why would I bother them? They're not bothering me. Why would I bother them? Now, I'm a person who likes school choice. And you might say to yourself, but Larry, if we have school choice, they won't teach their kids, well, the kids will fail. Our system's failing now. Now it's failing. New York State has some of the worst schools. Rochester in New York State has the worst school districts in the entire country. And we spend the most per kid. We spend almost $40,000 per kid in New York State. Our system's failing. If the Hasidic community can do a job for cheaper, why would I bother them? So I don't know if that's what you wanted me to say. Maybe you think I should step on them or do something aggressive with the Hasidic community. I would not. I think the opposite is true.
I'm a member of one of these communities, although not in the United States. And I think your point is a very refreshing one. A lot of Republicans and Democrats in New York like to pander to more Orthodox Jewish people as an ethnic group or religious group. But the second that anything sort of controversial happens in the community, they are quick to make laws against our religious freedom. And I'm very favorable towards your position. I'd like to thank you for coming here, and I appreciate your point.
There we go. Good. Thank you.
The next person we have here is B. ... I'm assuming that it must be some sort of streamer privacy thing, but let me go ahead and invite you to speak. Come on down.
Funny, I didn't realize my thing was going to get abbreviated like that. That's a little weird. That's just first thing I should mention. I liked what you were talking about when you said that you always have to outline your policies. So I actually started rewatching old Democrat primary debates to see who had policy and see if it actually changed my perception of who I thought did well and who I thought didn't. And that's something I'm going to be doing when I watch the Republican primary debates as well.
Yep.
Now, I'm a native New Yorker, so this first question is probably slightly less political. I like to think of New York as 4 types of political states: Long Island, the city, or eventually you could say Staten Island is its own thing at this point. Upstate cities, and then the rest of upstate. I was wondering where would you say is your favorite? Where would you say is your favorite part of New York?
Well, I think you're right. I think that's a very good breakdown. Staten Island is kind of its own thing now. It's the only red part of New York City. New York City is about 6-1 Democrat to Republican. The only place Republicans have any chance of victory is in Staten Island. Otherwise, there's no chance of Republican victories in New York City. In fact, across the state, New York State's 3-1 Democrat to Republican. There's actually no chance of a Republican victory statewide. Locally, Republicans win all the time, but they don't win statewide. No Republican has won any election in New York State statewide in 22 years. Not governor, right? Not senator, AG, nothing. So 2 parts of the favorite parts I have of New York State. One is New York City, because I live here. I live in Queens. So I still love the city, even though it's horribly broken. And it's heartbreaking for me to watch it as it's so broken. Because of the history. The history of New York City is amazing. It's one of the oldest cities in North America. The history that we have here is awesome. The culture we have here is second to none throughout the entire, again, the North American continent. There is no city on this continent that is a more impressive old city and has more culture. Doesn't exist. I don't care what city you live in. Sorry, doesn't beat New York. So that's great about New York. So many other things are broken. The other part that I like is Western New York. Western New York is a libertarian stronghold. Most of my votes come out of Western New York. And Western New York it's New York, but it's also country, but it's still north, which means it has what I really like, which is it has seasons, right? You can find that country type in the South, but doesn't have seasons. Western New York has seasons, and I love the seasons.
That's an interesting way of thinking about it. Like, I never thought about. I've only ever been up to Western New York once, so maybe I'll have to check that out a little more. The other question is something I wish I could ask a politician. Who is your political hero, or the one that inspired you?
The person who inspired me was actually Gary Johnson. Gary Johnson ran in 2012, and he actually moved me. I was actually giving up on politics. I was always the rebel. In the 90s, I thought Ross Perot was going to save us. And I thought Ralph Nader, he's going to save us. I believed all that stuff. Then I thought Obama, he's the man. He's going to change 2008. And then when he became basically George Bush II Jr., then I bailed on everybody. I thought no one's going to save us. We're done. I'm done. I wasn't going to vote anymore. I was finished. I was going to focus on my business and not worry about politics at all. I was going to be one of those people who checked out. But I heard Gary Johnson speak. Gary Johnson was governor of New Mexico. And what I liked about Gary Johnson was several things. The first thing is Gary Johnson's a good man. And that's not common in politics. I've met many politicians. Most of them are either they're empty suits or empty heads. Most of them are. And most politicians who are elected actually don't like their constituents. They get in the way of their grifting. And they're just annoyed by them. Gary Johnson wasn't that. When he was a governor, he was the governor of no. He vetoed more bills than all the other governors in the 49 states combined, which is a good thing. He wanted New Mexico to get better with the people. He also financed his own campaign. He was a businessman with a construction business and financed his own campaign. And when he would select judges, he asked them a question. This question stuck with me to this day. And I use this when I'm talking to people about unjust laws. When he appointed a judge, he'd ask them this question. He'd say, imagine if our state assembly made a law, passed a law, signed by the governor, that if you are 16 or 17 years old and you are convicted of graffiti, the punishment is mandatory sentencing of death. That's the law. It's gone through the assembly, signed by the governor. That is the law. If you're convicted of graffiti and you're 16 or 17 years old, death, mandatory sentence. So now you're a judge. Criminal case. The jury comes back. Guilty. The kid's 17 years old. What do you do? And his response was, as long as the person does not say sentence him to death, he could bring him on board. But if he said sentence him to death, he basically said, that's a bad person. I can't have you as a judge. That type of thought process on selecting a judge is something that I never lost. So I'm a big fan of Gary Johnson. A lot of people think he's a bad guy or dumb or silly or whatever and goofy. And he kind of is goofy sometimes too, but it's because he's human. And if we had more politicians like that, we'd have a better country.
Totally, I could totally see that. I just thought of one more, hopefully quick one. New York specific. What are your thoughts on the attempts for redistricting New York again? Because the case is back in the court.
I think our courts completely abandoned us. They screwed us by not outlawing gerrymandering. Our courts, particularly New York State judges in general, if you happen to be a New York State judge watching this, you're probably a piece of garbage. Most New York State judges are just terrible. They are all about the system. They don't care about the people at all. I've watched them put people in jail. My day job, I often consult with criminal defense attorneys, and I've watched them just not care at all. They just lock people up left and right. Most of them are former prosecutors. They don't care about the people at all. The judges are terrible. They look for every excuse to not do the right thing. Oh, some stupid judge said something dumb 20 years ago, so I'm just going to copy that judge and keep doing stupid shit. So our judges completely abandon us. Gerrymandering is unethical, immoral, destroying our system, and there should be no gerrymandering at all. To be forward, the redistricting they did in New York State, as far as gerrymandering goes, it isn't that bad. I mean, it's still gerrymandering. But if I've got to be in a scale of like 10 being horrible, it's only like a 4. It isn't that bad when it comes to gerrymandering. So if I'm looking, is it better than it was? Yes. Is it still garbage? Yes. Did I answer your question?
Wait. The maps we have now were because the original gerrymander was thrown out of the courts.
Yes.
Right. Because
so I'm saying it is better.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope so. Yeah. I
it's better.
Agree. If I were God, I would love to eliminate partisan and racial gerrymandering. Supreme Court
We got a whole bunch of questions to go through, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to move to the next person.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're going to see here. The next person we have here is Manuel. Manuel, I'm going to go ahead and invite you. Come on down. Manuel, are you there? You have been invited to speak. All right, I am not getting any response from Manuel, so we're going to go ahead and move to the next person. It's going to be here a question that was presented. Give me 1 second. Okay, yes. Do you believe it is self-defeating for libertarians to exclusively focus on the individual without recognizing or discussing group differences in terms of educational outcomes, criminal activity, and entrepreneurial endeavors?
That question's premise is completely garbage. I do it all the time. I do it almost daily. I talk about it all the time. Of course. The idea that we wouldn't think of that, of course we do. Of course we do. If you look at my policies, I speak about it all the time. I just literally did a show last Monday on Juneteenth, which is about the American, the American African descendants of slaves in America. Yeah, I don't know what the person's talking about. They may be talking about some conservatives who call themselves libertarians. And that is probably our biggest problem, right? People like Ben Shapiro, who calls himself libertarian. If you don't know this, Ben Shapiro is not a libertarian. Ben Shapiro is a conservative. I'm not mad at him for being a conservative. It's fine. Be a conservative. No worries. But please don't call yourself a libertarian. He's not. He's a conservative. So conservatives do that all the time. I don't think libertarians do. I mean, libertarians have been for all types of understanding problems and issues. From, as we talked earlier, we were for gay marriage and equality in the 70s, right? We were about ending the war on drugs, which we admit and tell everybody it is a racist system that absolutely puts more black and brown people in jail than white people. We've been talking about that since the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, we've been talking about this forever. I think the questioner is confusing libertarians with conservatives.
Okay, and so for our next person, we're going to go ahead and invite Ava Gardner. Ava, come on down. You are being summoned. Ava Gardner, are you there? You will lose your space if you do not respond. Scrabbles, I'm talking to you. Okay, we are getting no response from Ava Gardner. We're going to go ahead and move on to the next person, which is Neil Touchgrass Tyson. That is a very interesting name. We
Like
are
that.
inviting Neil Touchgrass Tyson. Ava Gardner, I see you just typed in chat. Uh, you want me to try to invite you to speak? I just invited you. Okay, Ava Gardner is not showing up. It looks like Neil Touchgrass Tyson is saying mobile is giving me issues, so I can go ahead and see if I could grab Neil's question. I believe he typed it in earlier, so give me 1 second. Now, this is not my question. This is his question. He said,
Uh-oh, he's going to beat me up. Go
how
ahead,
do
beat
you
me up.
combat, quote, trust the science, unquote, when studies and polls can and are often are rigged from the start, such as definitions, who to ask, what to collect. I am a data science by trade, by the way.
Can you repeat the question and see if I can get it?
Yeah, sure. He said, how do you combat trust the science, unquote, when
Trust the science.
studies
Okay,
and
got it. Okay.
polls can and often are rigged from the start, such as through definitions, who to ask, what to collect. I'm a data scientist by trade, by the way.
Got it. Okay. That now I get the question. Sadly, this is sad. This goes back to my earlier part that I brought up earlier, which is we have lost confidence and trust in most of our institutions. People trust Joe Rogan more than doctors, right? And not that I'm against Joe Rogan. I like Joe Rogan. That's great. But he's not a doctor, right? But I like him. I'm glad he's doing his thing. If he's watching, have me back on, damn it. Anyway, my point being, that's a problem, right? Because the issue is too many people in institutions are not transparent. When you lose trust in an institution, there is only one way to get it back: transparency. That is the only way to get it back, is transparency. If you are transparent with your flaws and with your victories, eventually people will begin to go, okay, I trust them again. But we're not. Our institutions are doubling down on we're better, shut up. And the example you see right now is that doctor, is it Hotez, is that guy's name? Who's not going on Joe Rogan's show to debate RFK. Now, the argument is, well, RFK's a kook or whatever. That's the argument. It doesn't matter. If he's a kook, go embarrass him then, because you're the guy. Now you might go, well, it's not fair. That guy isn't a debater. So there's nobody in the scientific community who could debate RFK Jr. There's nobody. If there's not one scientist who could debate RFK Jr., then RFK Jr. is right. Whether you believe him to be right or not, he is right, because no one's going to debate him. He is popular, and popularity matters. You can be happy about that, mad about that all day long. It is still true. Popularity matters often more than being right. That's how it works. So your side has to be able to talk to the other side. You simply have to. If you don't want to do it, you're going to lose. The way you combat that is two parts. If you are the institution trying to be trusted again, so that when you say trust the science, people do it, you have to be transparent completely in everything. Come clean on everything. Show all your dirty laundry, and eventually we'll begin to be trust. If you're not trust the science, you're like, this is bad, I don't care about the institution. All you have to do is go on social media. I'm not joking. Be more popular. Go on the podcasts. More people are getting their news, for good or for bad, from social media than from the mainstream legacy media. Legacy media maybe gets a 500,000 views a night. Maybe 500,000 views. I mean, and then you add all 3, 4. So maybe they're getting 2 million views, maybe, when you add all legacy media together in one night. Joe Rogan gets it on one show, right? And how about all the other people who get it, right? All the other people who are getting viewers and people who are watching. It's all over the place. So the real answer is transparency for the institutions and popular social media for the non-institution. That's how you fight it.
Very good. And so now we're going to go ahead and move on to the next questioner, which is Nutton or Nut. We're going to invite Nut. Come on down. Hopefully it works, because for some reason some people can't seem to get up here. Nut, are you able to get up here? I'm curious as to what exactly is happening. It's very strange that for whatever reason it is not. I think like it's happening with mobile users. Because I know Ava is a mobile user and so is Nut.
It's the system trying to get me. See that?
Yeah, it says he's having issues. Let me see if I can invite Cole up. Well, but Cole, you have permission to just come right on up. The notification is behind the banner and you cannot click on it. What banner?
I
Can
see
I
Nut
remove
is
the
not
banner
here.
somehow? Nut is in. Nut, go ahead with your question. Nut is currently silent. Nut, are you there?
Lost the Nut.
Let me try to. Now that's interesting. That's the first time I've seen that happen. Apparently, for whatever reason, there seems to be a problem with the event stage. I'll see if I can figure that out in between a question and hopefully remove the event stage banner. Nut is requesting to be re-invited. Let me go ahead and invite Nut. All right, Nut. I physically cannot force move somebody, unfortunately. I can only invite them to speak. Hmm. Considering I will try with forward party. Let me see. Invite to speak. Are you able to get it forward? Forward is
Hey,
able to get up. Okay,
yeah.
so that's working fine.
So it is a mobile issue.
It is a mobile issue? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell you what, why don't we go ahead and move to the event? Now, I will probably request just please mute yourself unless if you have been granted to speak. So it might be a little bit more chaotic, Larry, but if you're okay with that, we can, because I want to give the mobile users a chance.
It's fine. All good.
All right, let's go ahead and move down to the regular event, and I'll see you there.
Awesome.
Now, if you do decide that you're going to start speaking, please understand that you will be server muted if you do not respect the speaker. So just FYI, please do that. I'm going to see if I can get. Why am I still in the event?
Yeah, I'm in the vent too for some
That's
reason.
interesting. Anyway, let me see. Where is Larry Sharpe? is Larry? Larry, are you there? Let me copy the link and send it to him.
Hey, Amender, can I ask a quick question?
I do have a queue here.
I was just asking for where's my place in the queue.
Let me see. I'm trying to see where we lost Larry. Where are you at, Larry?
Easier enough.
He's here.
Okay, there we go.
Yay!
Yay, we got Larry.
I'm back.
Okay,
I had to ask my daughter to come in and show me how to do it.
so I'm gonna go back to Ava because Ava is a very interesting person. So let's go ahead and we're gonna let Ava speak. Ava, are you there? I do not see. Actually, she's not here. I must have. We must have lost her. We'll go ahead and move to Nut. Nut, go ahead. Feel free to unmute yourself. You are welcome to open the dialogue. So go ahead. Now we can't blame mobile for being able to unmute yourself. We'll go ahead and move on to the next person, which will be. Oh, Nut is back. It looks like that they are currently unmuted. Go ahead, Nut.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Oh, thank you for coming to the server, Larry. It's really nice to hear you today. I was wondering, so this is actually relevant to the topics that you just brought up, which is basically the loss of people's faith in institutions. What do you think about synergy?
Wow, could you have made a broader question? Can you give me a little bit more than that? A little bit?
So basically, I was thinking about what about institutional synergy? Maybe perhaps the reason why people are losing faith in institutions is just because the institutions by themselves are not producing the results that people want. But if we synergize them, that is, we have them work together to produce actual results that people want, then maybe they'll have it'll restore their faith in it. And like a proposal that I have is the foster care system it's basically a joke. Where it's kind of like a joke where it's just working together synergistically with prisons to basically turn like children into inmates. And I was thinking, well,
Correct.
What if instead of allowing that synergy to exist, we have it pair up with something else like public works instead?
Well, so you don't really mean synergy. You mean changing the government programs. So shifting away from a foster care into the prison industrial complex, instead foster care into government workers. Is that what you mean?
Like public works. Yep, that's exactly what I mean.
I mean, I guess, but I'd rather not have a pipeline at all for that. I'd rather just have a system to where the family court system doesn't break up families. So the family court system isn't so broken. Like some of you may not know how bad the family court system is broken. Kids go into foster care, and for several reasons. One, because the federal government gives states money for that. The federal government makes money by taking kids away from your family and putting them into foster care. So there's a financial incentive for states that are in trouble to do that. That's one of the reasons why. The second reason why is if the system gets broken, the family gets broken, and one person has to pay child support, usually the male, but not always, sometimes the female, more and more now the female, but traditionally always the male, that the state gets a cut like a credit card. So you're writing your check to your former spouse, the state gets a cut, and the judges know that, and they also get judged based on how much money they bring in. So they've made the breaking up of the family and the destruction and the misery of families, they've made it a profit center. So I think, and of course, the prison pipeline, to your point, also is a profit center, right? The prison industrial complex also a profit center. So everything's a government profit center. My worry is if we do that and we make them government workers, is that still making a profit center? That would be my concern. I get where you're going. I'd have to look deeper into that to see if that would still be am I then just then creating a system to where now I'm pumping out workers into the public union sector, in which case now public unions would be the profit center there. Do I want that to be the answer? I would rather make it to where we just have a better system in general. I think, generally speaking, when institutions fail, we have to get them off the teat of government. Right? One of the reasons, and there are many, but one of the reasons why colleges are failing so badly, and they are horribly, they're failing because their money comes from the government. As long as the government keeps giving them money, which is the system where everyone's going into debt, the kids go into debt, the colleges make tons of money, and they have no accountability whatsoever. All the colleges do is give you a sheet of paper saying you showed up for 4 years. That's it. Whether you get a degree, whether you have anything of value, whether you get a job, who cares? So I think we have to change that entire system. I don't want to be pushing people into government work. I want people to take government work because they want government work, because they think it's the right answer for them. I don't want to push them into it. I think, again, I'm back to freedom. I'm not against government workers. If you think that's a good a path for you, please take that path. But I don't want to push you into it. I want you to go to where you want to go. Nonprofit, private sector, military, whatever. You should go where you want to go. So my worry is that if I have a choice of now or your idea, I take your idea. Your idea is far better than the current system. But I think we can go even better than that.
Okay, thank you very much. That answers my question.
Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to Ava. Ava, I believe you are currently, so go ahead and unmute. Feel free to ask your question. Aternalis, you are in the queue. You are after Manuel, then second amender.
Can anybody hear Ava? I can't.
Oh, there she is. No, it was working. Ava.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. Thank you so much for letting me speak. Mr. Sharpe, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, beautiful. I had a question for you before, but actually hearing you speak right now inspired something else. So I just have a two-pronged question, if that's all right with you.
Uh-oh. I'm in trouble now. Go ahead.
Oh, definitely you are, actually. So when AJ was speaking, you were saying you're very close to the Hasidic community in New York, right? So I am actually myself Lebanese and Palestinian. So dun dun dun. So as a libertarian, so my very rough estimate of the libertarians are a movement that is very, how do you say, hands off when it comes to social movements, but very much so, how do you say, hands off when it comes to social movements, but you are also very anti-government when it comes to social movements, but you're fiscally responsible, right? I'll put it that way to be kind and cute, right? But so what is your views on the BDS movement, right? Because there are so many in New York, especially.
Oh, so that's where this is going. Okay, good. Two things. Number one of our most popular libertarians is actually Palestinian, Justin Amash. So we actually do have.
I know a lot about Mosh. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so there is that representation clearly in our party. Many. The BDS movement, whether it is private or public, is my only issue. If it is private, on you. If you feel it's a bad idea to support the state of Israel, please don't buy their products. Don't help them out. I have no problem with that whatsoever. You can do what you feel is appropriate with your money. Absolutely go ahead. But when it's taxpayer dollars, why would you do that? If it's taxpayer dollars, if that's what it is, buying products for New Yorkers or for Americans or for whatever, I want the best product for the best price for my tax dollars. If that happens to be Israeli, I don't care. That's taxpayer dollars. How can the government decide that we should boycott? We should boycott no countries. None. Not Cuba, not North Korea, not nothing.
Not even China? Not even China?
Not even China. When taxpayer dollars are being used, I want the best price and the best product. Now, two exceptions to that rule. Number one, personal dollars, you should do whatever you want, however you want. I have no problem with you starting an entire movement to blockade a country, to blockade a nation, to blockade a people. No worries. That's your money. You should be able to do that and stand on a corner and yell it. All good, but not taxpayer dollars. Second piece to that is what's happening now is taxpayer dollars are now going into nonprofits. That's a problem because now the taxpayer dollar goes to a nonprofit. Well, some nonprofits are either religious or are ethnic based or something like that. Well, now they go, well, I'm going to give money to this one, but not that one. Now I have a problem too. So I'm going to give money to the one that supports Israel and not to the one that doesn't, or give money to the one that doesn't support Israel and not to the one that does. How about I don't give any money or I give all the money? It's government. Either everybody gets it or nobody gets it. So public versus private is where I stand on that.
Okay. Okay.
One last question.
All right. Okay. I'll wrap it up real quickly. My second point is that, so we see a lot of the proliferation of these third parties, right? We see, the People's Party sprouting out, and we see the Green Party, and we see all these things, right? Do you not see? Listen, I am a big fan of these, I guess, explorations, right? But I do see a problem in the fact that we are a first past the post system. I don't really see any hope, I guess, in these parties, no matter what, right? And this starts off with the fact that at the end of the day, our system was never meant to give these third parties an equal shot. Don't you think that the best option would be to get our system, like how the PR system in Europe and such, at least give these people an opportunity to, as long as you get
touch
a
that
certain
question.
percentage.
Good question. Let me touch that question.
I'm sorry.
2 parts to that. First part, our system was not built for that. There are no political parties in the Constitution. They don't exist. Our system became that. For those who don't know, our Constitution didn't say a president runs along with the vice president in the same party. What our Constitution said originally was the first person with the most votes, not the majority, the most votes is the president, and the second person is the vice president. So if our system worked the way it was supposed to work, our president right now would be Joe Biden, and the vice president would be Donald Trump. That's how it's supposed to work. But we changed that. Why? Political parties.
Yeah.
So the system became that way with political parties. It was not set up that way. So that's piece number 1. But second, you're right. Third parties with first past the post, oh my God, it's terrible. But the point is, who's going to change it? Only a third party. You're right. It's a broken system. They're not going to change it, though. They're going to keep it this way forever. Why? They're making money. They're doing fine. They're crushing us. They've got us stuck in stupid culture wars that don't matter. Well, they keep making tons of money. The rich keep getting richer. The poor keep getting screwed. The middle class keeps getting hammered. On and on and on. And they all make their money. And we fight over things that don't matter because culture war stuff that it's irrelevant. That's where they have it right now. We have to have a third party push through. We just need one party to push through. Is it hard? Yes, you are correct. Everything's set up against us, 100%. But somebody's got to push through. Someone's going to break a hole and let somebody push through. And once one person pushes through, what will happen? People like you will go, man, maybe it can work. And then it can work. It only works if we believe it can work. And right now we don't believe it because it isn't working. Let it work one time. Let there be one governor, or let us win a Senate seat. Let us win a couple congressional seats, something like that. When that happens, people will believe it. And here is the reality. The time is now. You might say, Larry, you're saying it because you're involved. No, I'm saying it because Forward Party is raising over $100 million. Libertarian Party is still the largest party, third party in the entire nation, getting 50-state ballot access. No Labels raised over $100 million, right? These People's Party is starting to move forward. Cornel West is running with the Green Party.
Yeah,
right?
Cornel West
RFK is talking about doing this. Right? We are doing it. Now is the time. Can we win this next year? I don't know, Ava. I don't know. Maybe, but if it's not next year, it's the time after.
MashaAllah. I do want to wrap up by saying I love your accent. We love a good New Yorker representing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And that was Ava. The next person we have here is Manuel. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, Manuel. You have the floor.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Hi, Larry Sharpe. Thanks for coming. I had a question for you. It's I wanted to ask you, do you believe that the United States has a right or duty to protect and promote democracy and human freedom abroad, and not just in the United States here at home, but outside and maybe in China and Russia and Iran? against authoritarian regimes. Do you believe the United States has a place in protecting those freedoms in overseas?
Not at all. Absolutely zero. Not one single bit. What we're supposed to do, which we don't do, is we're supposed to be the shining beacon. We're supposed to be the shining city on the hill that everyone looks to and says, oh my God, I want to be like them. We don't do it. What we do is we go in and bomb places and ruin places and make everything worse. Every place we've gone has become worse, with the exception of World War II. World War II, we rocked that. That was good. Well done, World War II. Past World War II, every place we've gone into has become worse. So no, we don't make things better. We have no responsibility. We're not free in our own country. How about we become free in our own country first before we start acting like we're going to go bring democracy someplace else? Absolutely no. No, zero, no responsibility whatsoever. It never works. I was a Marine for 7 years, so I know what it is to be. I believed Ronald Reagan when he told me go over and fight and kill people. I thought he was right. And no, he was wrong. They're all wrong. They're all warmongers. We help nobody. No, 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 100% no.
Hey, real
Okay,
quick,
but to follow up,
real quick, I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a technical issue. Larry, can you try disabling your camera for a second? I think right now the event has maxed out the 25 users in a single chat, but if you disable your camera, I think it will allow the amount of people that can join to increase. Can we just test it real quick? I just want to see what happens.
Test it.
I don't know if that worked or not.
You tell me.
It did. It worked. It worked. That did work. So I'm going to go ahead and, yeah, just keep it disabled. I apologize for that. It's now set to 25 out of 99 as opposed to, anyway, thank you very much. Did you have any other questions?
No, I think Matt, follow-up question.
Go ahead.
yeah, I
Manuel.
did. So okay, I understand your position about war and stuff, but what about if we don't intervene like militarily, but we sanction regimes that are very aggressive and violate human rights, like North Korea, right? We have sanctions on North Korea. On Cuba, we have sanctions.
And boy, that's worked in North Korea, hasn't it? No, it hasn't. But it worked in Cuba. No, it hasn't. But it's working in Russia. No, it isn't. It never works, ever. It is a failed concept. It never works. If you want Cuba to be free, let them buy American products. If you want North Korea to be free, sell to them. They will become free. How do I know this? Vietnam. We were in Vietnam for 10 years. We bombed the hell out of that country. We destroyed them. And finally, we walked away. And 20 years later, they're our trading partner. Vietnam right now, you can buy furniture from Vietnam right now in your home. Sanctions never work. We're sanctioning Russia, and they're still bombing Ukraine. It has not changed. Sanctions are a fantasy. All sanctions do is create monopolies in a black market. They never help. Do not sanction anybody. Never. It never works ever. You cannot tell me one time it worked. All it does is make people weaker, more painful. It hurts. Not even South Africa. If you ask the South Africans, right now, look at their states falling apart right now. But even South Africa, you ask the people who are there, they said the American sanctions hurt black people more than white people. And what made South Africa come up? It was a black middle class. The black middle class is what broke apartheid, not our sanctions. And if we hadn't sanctioned them, the black middle class would have grown faster, which means they would have broken apartheid faster. Manuel, I love your passion. I'm just telling you, this has never worked. This is a failed concept. It does not work.
No, I see your point because I watched your debate with Dylan Burns and Destiny. I've seen your points, but my thing would be, wouldn't this just show like regimes that are very hostile and aggressive, that if the United States is not going to sanction you, right? So you don't really have to worry about being economically attacked by the biggest economy on earth, right? At the same time, wouldn't that just make them like more, well, they're not going to do anything against us, so we have free reign to do, like in China and Taiwan, it doesn't really matter, or the South China Sea, or Ukraine and Russia. Like, wouldn't that just show America as a weak country that does not want to exert influence with sanctions or military force?
Do people think that about Norway?
Well, Norway is
Do people think that about Sweden? No. Do people think that about any of the other countries who are doing very well, making tons of money? Do they think that? No. Of course not. We are sanctioning North Korea, and they're still making nuclear weapons. We are sanctioning Iran, and they're still fighting in Yemen. We are sanctioning Russia, and they're still fighting in Ukraine. How did it doesn't matter. They're not afraid of it anyway. They find other ways. In fact, what it's doing is it's destroying our petrodollar. The petrodollar we have in the United States is what keeps us afloat. So now we sanction everybody, think we're going to stop them. What's happening now? They're agreeing to now sell and buy and trade in Indian rupees and Chinese digital dollars or digital yuan. They're taking other people's money now for international trade. Our sanctions are destroying our own dollar. That's what's happening now. Our own dollar is not going to be the reserve currency if we keep using it as a weapon. It doesn't work, and it makes people resentful. Let's say, for example, you're right. And now, because we're not going to bomb Russia or sanction Russia, they decide they're going to invade Ukraine. Okay, say they even conquer Ukraine. Say you're right, they conquer Ukraine because they're not scared of us. It happens. You think Poland, Germany, France, Britain can sit there and go, okay, guess we get controlled by the Russians now. In case you didn't know, the French, the British, all have nuclear weapons. Chinese, nuclear weapons. Indians, nuclear weapons. Pakistanis, nuclear weapons. Israelis, nuclear weapons. The Russians are going nowhere. They can't even take Ukraine. I don't know what you're talking about. This is just, it's a non-starter.
Yeah,
it is a theory.
We're going to go ahead and move on to the next person. Manuel, please. We have to move on to the next person. That was the final question. We're going to go to Second Amender. Second Amender, you are free to go ahead and speak.
Thank you, First Amender, and it's nice to finally hear your voice, Mr. Larry. I am Second Amender. I am the resident, I guess, Ukraine skeptic of the server. What do you think that the Russians and the Ukrainians should, like, the final deal to, like, end this war? I know you're probably, like, anti-war or, like, you're kind of indifferent or whatever, but what do you think would be a fair offer for the Ukrainians and the Russians to accept?
Well, to be very forward, I would want peace right away. If I had the magic power to be president or something, I would immediately try to sue for peace. And the first thing I do is I would give in to both of them. I would give in to both. I would say, you know what, Russia, we will not make Ukraine part of NATO. You know what, Ukraine, we will try to assist you in a special way to help rebuild your country. I would try to do that to give them both a positive reason to stop fighting. I would try immediately to have a ceasefire. And if they see value in a ceasefire, then negotiate a border. Negotiate a border that both can accept. There is no way that either side is going to be happy. Russia is not going to get all of Ukraine. Ukraine's not going to get all of Ukraine back either. It's just not going to happen now. We've gone down a road where so many tens of thousands of people are dead. So much treasure has been lost that just emotion, it's not going to work. And that may sound stupid, but that's the truth. That's how it actually works. They have to have a situation to where no one feels like they lost. They have to be able to go home to their countries and say, see, we won. And that means America has to walk in and say that, or better yet, walk out. Say we don't want anything to do with it and let the Swedes take over. As Swedes, they're becoming NATO. It's not going to work. Let the Singaporeans take over. How about that? Singaporeans come in, take over. And they decide that they're going to now negotiate this peace. You have to negotiate a peace to where somehow we are going to assist in rebuilding a broken Ukraine and give Russia guarantees that we're never going to have NATO in Ukraine ever. In fact, if I'm radical, we leave NATO. That's what we do. We pack up and leave NATO completely. Just go, sorry, NATO. EU, create your own defense with EU. You got nuclear weapons. You got a bunch of, well, Brits walked out. They may change their mind on that one. But anyway, the EU will create their own defenses, and we're going to walk away. We walk away from the border, and you will find a safer Eastern Europe. We are the problem in Eastern Europe. You need to get out. We're the problem in Korea. The reason why Korea won't unite is because we have bases in South Korea. If we unite Korea, America will have bases on the border of China. They will never accept that. We should abandon South Korea. Korea will unite. That's how it will work. How do we know that? That's what happened in Germany. So that will absolutely happen. We can do this. So my answer is either walk away and have like the Singaporeans do it or someone like that. They would love to be involved in this kind of thing. Or maybe the guys from Dubai or the UAE, they would do something like that. They would make it happen and let them negotiate a line and let them work their countries out. We are not going to be able to solve that problem with bombs and guns. We haven't been able to solve a problem with guns and bombs since World War II, and we're not going to be able to.
Okay, thank you for answering. May I ask a quick follow-up through a bit of a role play scenario? Would you indulge me?
Of course.
Okay, so in this scenario, I'm Russia, you're Ukraine, and my offer is this. I will withdraw, I will end my attacks on your territory, right? And in exchange, right, I give you back like the Donbass and the Luhansk regions, but you let me keep my military bases, my Navy bases in the Crimea, and yeah, that's all. Would you take that deal?
They get Crimea back?
No. The Russians keep Crimea, but the Ukrainians, you keep the Donbass and Luhansk regions.
So all Russia gets is Crimea.
Yeah, they keep Crimea.
That's literally the board. That's literally the borders before the war started. Why wouldn't you take that deal? You already had it. That would be an amazing deal. That's the borders before the war started.
No, I'm guessing. I'm asking, would you as Ukraine take that deal?
Yes, that's the borders before the war started.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going.
All right, fair enough.
Of course, they would take it tomorrow. Of course they would.
And I guess the last follow-up, right, is: do you think Zelensky survives the end of this war?
I assume so. He's kind of a hero, so they probably want to like make a movie about him or something. I assume so.
Thank you.
You have one more question available to you if you want. If not, then we'll go ahead and move on to the next person. There is a large list.
That was 3.
Oh, that was 3? Oh, okay. My fault.
That was 3.
All right,
yep.
We're going to move on to Aeternalis. Aeternalis, you have the floor. You must unmute yourself, Aeternalis. Aeternalis, are you there? Please unmute or you will likely lose your place. Okay, we're going to move on to the next person. Smappy, the average ninja. Smappy, you are good to go. I don't know if Smappy is even here. I'm not sure exactly why we're having so many technical difficulties. I hear from Aeternalis saying that they are unmuted on their screen.
Can everybody hear me now?
Ah, there we go. Go ahead, Aeternalis.
All right, Mr. Sharpe, I have a couple different questions. The first one is... Well, no. The first one is, I'm going to open with this one because it sort of relates to something you said during the sanctions conversation. Do you believe that we should lift the embargo on Cuba, even though they are a socialist country, which is an ideology that goes against your views as a libertarian? You mentioned Vietnam and how we, kind of pulled down and left them alone and became a trading partner, but objectively, they are still a socialist country run by a communist party.
Okay, I'll touch both. 100% yes. Why do I say yes? Because I believe in my heart that if we show people what freedom is like, if we do it, people will want freedom. If the Cubans actually let us start selling to the Cubans, the Cuban people will go, oh, and of course, I must do 2 things. We should do that, and we should be freer in our own country. Sadly, we are often hypocritical in our own country, and we're not doing the right thing. We bomb other countries. We do terrible things. We allow corporations to destroy us. So we have to change who we are as an example. And yes, I don't care if the Cubans are socialists. So what? What do I don't care if the Vietnamese are socialists. So I should bomb them and their people should be poor? Why would I do that? Let the people of Cuba see what it's like to have a free country assisting them. Let us go back and forth in trade. Let us go back and forth, in tourism. And if we're as good as I think we can be and should be, their people should be clamoring for freedom. And you might go, but Larry, they might fight violently. They can if they want to. Canada became free from the UK without war. America became free from the UK with war. Both are the right answer. The people decide. Let the Cubans decide their own fate as they see fit. Let the Vietnamese choose their fate as they see fit. What the Vietnamese believed is that they wanted to be on their own. They had, without question, been punished by multiple, colonizing nations, France, China, America, forever. Now they're their own. And Gandhi said it right. Any people would prefer their own bad government to the government of an alien power. Period. So I hear what you're saying, and I don't care if they're socialist. So what? Some countries are more socialist than others. Some will change. If we are righteous and we are correct, and I believe we can be, we aren't now, but I think we can be, we will show them what freedom is, and they will follow us. I believe that completely.
Okay, thank you for that answer. My second question is, what is your view on Biden shutting down the rail union strike, especially after he claimed to be a pro-union president? Do you believe this action violates the libertarian belief of free association? Should the state of the economy take importance over organized working class action?
Two pieces to that. One, Biden was an insanely horrible hypocrite. That he should have absolutely supported unions. He called himself the most pro-union president. It was hypocritical. The problem is the system. And the system is most of our major transportation is run by the government. It's run by a monopoly. One union, basically one company, even though it's multiple companies, but they're all based in the pocket of the federal government. The federal government basically runs everything. That's the problem. Unions, I'm not against unions at all. Unions are, as you said, they're the First Amendment. They are freedom of association, freedom to petition. That's what they are. And I'm totally fine with that. Freedom of speech, they're all the things in the First Amendment. You should be able to collectively bargain if you like. The problem I have with unions is twofold. One, public unions don't negotiate with their bosses. Public unions negotiate with politicians who aren't really their bosses. It's not the politicians' money. All public unions should negotiate all of their contracts via public referendum because the people who pay them are us taxpayers. Now, people automatically say, oh, you're going to fight. No, almost everybody, particularly in states like New York and California, we all know somebody who's a union worker. I mean, a bunch of our family and friends, they all know they either work for the government or know people who work for the government. So we're not going to hammer them because we're mad at them, but we're going to now they're going to be accountable to us. But not just that. Public unions drop tons of money on politicians, buying them basically. So don't buy them. Instead, if you want your good contract, if you want your good stuff, instead petition us, right? Come into our communities and tell us what you need. Come into our communities and pitch what's important. And then we vote for you. Changes the entire system. All of a sudden now we are connected to our public unions. The public is now connected to public unions. That would change everything. Private unions are separate. They work with their own companies and such. But one more piece. You don't want just one union. Monopolies don't work. Monopolies are bad in the private sector and they're bad in government. The idea that one union controls everything, terrible. That one president could shut it all down, terrible. Let the market work to the best of its ability with unions as part of that market. Labor is part of the market. We often forget that. We think labor is not part of the market. Of course it is. Labor should be just as strong and fight as it should fight in the market, and we don't do that. And if that means the entire nation shut down, so be it. Fix the system. I'm not against, I'm going to personally, to be forward, I would hate it because it's going to affect me. I'll be angry at the situation. Of course I would. It's going to affect me. Yes. But is it still the right thing to do? Of course. If shutting down a system is the way that we can fix this so that labor and business can function effectively, so we can break up monopolies and oligarchies, let it happen. Did I answer your question?
Absolutely. First Amender, do I have time for one more question?
Actually, I'm actually going to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to make it just one question per person at this point because we are starting to run out of time, and I want to make sure everybody at least can ask one question because the list is quite large now. Smappy,
Sure.
Are you there? Go ahead and ask your one question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharpe.
Yes.
Smappy, I'm sorry, Smappy Average Ninja. You have the floor. You are here. You have to
Yay.
unmute yourself. Smappy looks like is making a valid attempt. For whatever reason, mobile is having an issue. Average Ninja, are you there?
Hello.
There you
Hello, is
go.
anyone
It's
there?
working.
Okay, I don't know what the hell's up, but anyways, I guess since there's only one question, I gotta ask. So recently, Lauren Boebert and the House Freedom Caucus have recently filed for impeachment against Joe Biden for his handling towards the the Mexican border crisis, migrant situation. Are you familiar with that?
I am. Was that your question?
Oh no, I'm not done. I was just wondering. So, like, what is your opinion on the whole impeachment thing about with Lauren Boebert and some of the Republicans trying to impeach Joe Biden, similar to how the Democrats tried to impeach Donald Trump twice?
It's absolutely just grandstanding. It's not going to happen. It's silly. It's just grandstanding.
That's a
That's all it
question,
is.
bro. You are done.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd have to agree because like I see so many similarities like with both impeachments. Like there's always like how like the press there's apparently they do like something wrong or whatever, and then all of a sudden, oh my god, like they're the
If
enemy.
you're
Like,
going to start impeaching people, like I'm not against impeaching, but I have an idea. Impeach all these guys in the past 20 years for getting us illegally into all these wars. Impeach them for that. Impeach them for making the debt so bad that we can never pay it back. Impeach them for keeping a war on drugs that's been putting people in jail, ruining millions of lives for 30 years. Do that, right? You want to impeach them for that. The stuff they're impeaching them for is stupid. It doesn't mean anything. It's showboating.
So the next person we're going to have is Forward Party. Forward Party, you did speak earlier out of turn, so just please make sure that you are being polite and trying to keep quiet, as there are a lot of people in the chat, and we want to hear what he has to say. Go ahead, Forward Party. You now have the floor to ask your question.
Oh, I didn't know I was unmuted. I did not know. I thought I was muted like everyone else. Sorry about that if I said something in the background. Sorry about that. Hi Larry. Kind of a big no, well, not a big fan, just a fan in general. I saw you on the
Oh, I wanted
PN.
to be a big fan. All right, fine.
I see you debates with like a lot of people like Sam Cedar to like the PNG rich guys. I don't know what their real name, their YouTube channel is.
Yep.
So my question is, I am part of the Forward Party, and I hear that you didn't mention us earlier back, like how we're raising money to get on the ballots. And when it comes to like, I think the one thing that's really preventing third parties from winning is just simply the system. Like, and this is my biggest critique and this leads to my question. I feel like third parties could be successful if they would just get their head out of their butts and work together rather than being, no, he's a Green Party and I'm never going to work with him. And in my opinion, that's stupid as hell because that's not
Well,
how you get
agree with
anywhere.
you because
Yeah.
literally I was the only libertarian endorsed by the Forward Party last year. Not
And
just
I
that I was on
love that.
stage. Yes, I was on stage with Andrew Yang at Freedom Fest last year, and my lawsuits last year included the Green Party. So yes, I agree with you completely. I jump on any. I am obviously biased. I'm a libertarian, so clearly I'm biased. However, your point's a valid one. Any third party will break through and help us all. So if I can assist any party move through, I will, even with my bias. I agree with you completely.
Thanks. And this leads to my question. I think one thing that a lot of third parties are not looking at, and I think this one particular voting reform method, and people talk about ranked choice voting and other stuff like that, but I think this is the one. What's your opinion on fusion voting? And if you don't know what it is, I could just give a oversimplification
I live in New
of it.
York. I know exactly what fusion voting is. Fusion voting, I think, in theory, is a wonderful idea. In practice, it actually doesn't work very well at all. What winds up happening is people just buy up party lines and start having multiple parties. And for those who know what fusion voting is a situation to where multiple parties can allow one person to be on multiple lines. So, for example, if the Forward Party supported a libertarian candidate, the person could be on the Forward line and the libertarian line, and all the votes for both would count. New York State does that, right? That's how New York State works. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to get the Forward endorsement last year. I was hoping I could be on multiple lines. I wanted to be on the Forward line and on the libertarian line and on the Green. I want to be on multiple lines. I think in theory, it's great. If we could actually get it to work like that, I'm 100% on board. Right now, what happens is you have, like in my state, the Conservative Party, which all the Conservative Party ever does is back the Republicans. The Republican gets 2 lines. And you have the Working Families Party. All the Working Families Party ever does is back the Democrat. So the Democrat gets 2 lines. So now any independent party who gets in the ballot is fighting his people on 2 or 3 lines. So if we could change the system to where it worked the way I talked about it, I'm in. If we keep it the way it is now, it's not working.
Gotcha. Thank you so much, Larry. And I do hope to see you get supported again. We are starting to build up our New York forward party in our state. They're in the organization phase, but I do hope that they get up to the level for ballot access. And I do hope that if you ever run for office again, I hope to see you more involved in the forward party as a partner and seeing you on our platform a lot. Because people like you, we need people like you. We need all people
Thank
from
you, my
third
friend.
parties
I
to work
appreciate it.
together.
Thank you.
So thank you, Larry.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to move on to the next person. This was a question that was intended to be read out. This is a question from Nate. Would you advocate for a reduction in taxes? And if so, how would you address the budget shortfall?
Yeah, generally speaking, I'm not about lowering taxes, which may make you want to your head explode if you think you're libertarian. I'm for eliminating taxes. And I don't mean all taxes. I mean, you eliminate certain taxes. And how do you do that? While most people on the left will just tax and spend. Most people on the right will debt and spend, but they're all going to spend. You've got to find a way of raising money without taxation. Let me give you a couple of examples on how I would do that. One of them I brought up was the idea of trying to support the MTA here in New York State. And I said, at night, for those of you who know about New York City, the MTA is our subway system. And at night in the subways, only every other train runs because there aren't enough people to take the trains. So I said, instead of running every other train, run all the trains, but every other train is a freight train, allowing freight to come into the city. Freight comes into the city. When that happens, all of a sudden now there's less trucks in the city, right? So that's good. And then they'll have to have new lines for freight trains. Well, who will build those new lines? Well, companies like Amazon, companies like UPS, FedEx. These are companies that have billions of dollars just in their marketing. They would easily rebuild the entire system for several $billion dollars. They fix the system. All of a sudden now that's coming in, and we lease naming rights to all the hubs where their goods will come in. Their goods come in instead of it being the the Andrew Cuomo thing. Now it's the FedEx thing, or it's the UPS thing, or it's the Google thing, or it's the whatever. Now all of a sudden they're paying to do it. They've rebuilt the system. The average New Yorker who uses the subway system, which is the working poor and middle classes who use the subway system, all of a sudden those people have a cheaper, newer system without any taxpayer dollars, right? Not just that, you lease out the rights to get them into the town, to the city. They will absolutely pay for that because now they're not paying for trucks to come in. Not just that, less wear and tear on our bridges, less wear and tear on our roads, less pollution from the trucks in the city. Win, win, win. Everything's amazing, helps. And now we can keep the price down without raising taxes. Add on top of that, lease out naming rights to the bridges. Right now, we have bridges with names like the RFK Bridge or the Ed Koch Bridge. Make it the Google Bridge, the 3M Bridge, the Pepsi Bridge. They'll go, oh, it looks terrible. I don't care how it looks. I want people to not have to pay $18 to cross a bridge in New York City. And they do pay that. And if you're only making $18 an hour, you're losing an hour of your pay to cross a goddamn bridge. The wealthy aren't paying that. Why? They live in Manhattan already. They're not paying that. Only the working poor and the middle class are paying these fees. So end it. You don't like Pepsi on your bridge? Too bad. Find another answer. You don't have one. I do. You do that with those two things, you can raise enough money to where the MTA will actually have a surplus instead of a deficit every year. Now, that's how I can lower taxes. I'll go one step further. I brought up Norway earlier. Norway has a lot of social systems in it. It does, absolutely. Why? Because it has one of the largest sovereign wealth funds on the planet. So it literally has $1 trillion in its wealth fund. Well, why don't we have one in New York State? New York State can create a New York State social trust, create a trust that will put tons of money in it. It will begin to grow. When that grows, you pay for education directly from that trust. It's a separate company, not part of the government. If you make it part of the government, it will always go into the slush fund. That's happened literally every single time. You're not allowed to go into a slush fund. It pays for education. Once that happens, school tax in New York State goes away. When school tax in New York State goes away, it will cut property tax in New York State, depending upon where you are, about 50%. That's how I eliminate half of your property tax, and I eliminate the fees and fines in the MTA. Upstate New York is able to have a better lifestyle, and so's downstate. I've not raised taxes, in fact, I've lowered taxes, and the wealthy are now voluntarily paying for the working poor and the middle class. That's what I want. If you're on the right, you don't want any more taxes. If you're on the left, you want the big corporations paying for the average person. I've just given you both.
Okay, and so now we will go ahead and move on to the next question. This is a question from Cole. He said, what do you think about rank and file voting?
I think he means ranked choice voting. I think that's what he
Yeah,
means.
I'm assuming that's ranked choice.
Yes. And ranked choice voting is wonderful. It is not a magic bullet, right? It doesn't fix everything, but I think it does make things better. What I mean by that is, for those who don't know ranked choice voting basically means you take everyone who you would want to vote for, whoever those people are. Say, for example, there are 4 or 5 people running, and you rank them. You say, this person gets my number 1 vote, this person number 2 and 3, and these 2 people, I don't like to get none of my vote. If the first person that you voted for wins, you win. If that person doesn't win, then your first vote is removed, and now it goes to the second person. What does that do? It allows for both offensive and defensive voting, right? I think it was Second Amendment who brought up, I forgot who did. Someone brought up saying that, it's tough what first past the post. That's true. But imagine if instead, Ava brought us up also. Ava talked about third parties not winning. Most of the time, people don't vote for a third party because they're afraid that the third party will be a spoiler, right? I can't vote for you, Larry, because if I vote for you, then the other bad guy, wins. So I can't do that. With ranked choice voting, it's okay. Let's say you're in New York, and if you're in New York, you're probably a Democrat because most New Yorkers are Democrats, and you want a Democrat to win, and you're scared of the Republican. No worries. You vote for Larry Sharpe first and a Democrat second. Either I win, awesome, you're happy because you like me best. But if I lose, doesn't matter, your vote now goes to the Democrat. So you have an offensive vote and a defensive vote all in one. I think it does help, but as a second piece, that's good. If you have ranked choice voting, you want to make sure that if the bottom person doesn't win, that their votes go to you. So it means that you will be less likely to be angry and mean to each other. How do I know that to be true? Because we have ranked choice voting in the primaries in New York City. And there were a bunch of people who didn't fight each other. There was less vitriol. There was still vitriol. Again, this is not a magic bullet. It doesn't fix everything. But there was absolutely less vitriol than there was before. Ranked choice voting is a nice push, but it is not an end-all be-all. But I think it's good.
Great. And so we're going to move on to the next person who wanted to ask a question. Culture Shock. You have the floor, Culture Shock. Oh, it looks like Culture Shock is requesting for me to write it or to say it for him. So we'll do that. My question instead of speaking. Do you support drug legalization as the first step into combating and taking down the Mexican drug cartels, or what do you think should be done about drug cartels? Many conservatives have said invasion was a solution.
Yeah, invasion's obviously the right answer. It's worked so well these past 70 years. Oh, wait, no, it hasn't, not once. We have not had a successful invasion since 1945. All of our invasions have failed since 1945, unless you count Grenada. I mean, if you count that, then there's one win. Everything else has failed. Invasion is an insanely stupid idea. That idea is just to make sure we can keep pumping the military-industrial complex. They floated that in case we were going to have to pull out of Ukraine. Remember, we have to keep making bombs because of our military-industrial complex and shipping things someplace. If we keep Ukraine going on, we're never going to invade Mexico. But if Ukraine goes away and we can't bomb someplace, we might bomb Mexico because we got to bomb someplace. So that idea is a terrible idea. 100% no to that one. Legalization. I think the first step is not drug legalization. I think the first step is complete and utter decriminalization of cannabis. You asked for the first step. That's the first step. if we just make cannabis not illegal. That's it. Regulating cannabis is insanely stupid. It's embarrassingly bad. And if you want to see how bad it is, I'm going to pump myself for a second. Head over to my Larry Sharpe YouTube page and see last night's show on my governor, Kathy Hochul, and her plan to legalize cannabis. It is so insanely bad and stupid. And we've learned from the others, and we're worse. Legalizing cannabis and regulating it will only keep a black market, will keep black and brown people going to jail. It's a terrible idea. Just regulate it like a plant. When I ran for office, I literally said, regulate it like onions, and then make it 18 or older to buy. You do that first step, you will find people shifting into cannabis products legally. You will see them using less drugs. They'll still use drugs, less harder drugs. You'll see more people use cannabis as an exit drug from the harder drugs. That will begin to happen over time. Our drug problem cannot be fixed overnight. I wish it could. You asked for a first step. That's the first step. Once that happens, there'll be less demand. That's number one. But cartels will see that. Cartels will also know that eventually other drugs will become decriminalized. That will be the future. It gives the cartels a chance to do one of three things. Go someplace else. That's one option. Two, legitimize. Just become legitimate businesses. Start selling weed legally, that kind of thing. The option to do that. And some will do that. I don't know how many. Or go into something else. They'll go, I don't know, become kidnappers in Mexico or something, whatever they do. But they'll eventually stop with the drugs coming over our border if they see the writing on the wall. They're just businesses. I mean, they're horrible, evil businesses that kill people, but they're still businesses. So if we do that, you will see it begin to shift. I hope over the next 10 years, we could actually break them because it won't make any money for them anymore.
Very good. And so the next person we have here is Yoda. Yoda, you have the floor to ask your question.
All right, Larry, I just want to say thank you for coming to our server and giving us the ability to speak with you. My question is, do you think it would be a good use of taxpayer dollars to institutionalize the countless homeless people living in the United States? These homeless people are often caught in vicious cycles of addiction or mental illnesses that undermine their personal freedom until it is non-existent. By creating an institution that would offer services such as rehab, housing, education, medical services, therapy, we would be able to nurse these people back to their full capability of freedom, where they could become free members of society upon leaving the institution after demonstrating they have regained their ability to exercise their freedom. Thank you.
Yes, in theory, but let me be very clear on how that cannot work and how it can work. You are correct, but it cannot be done by government. Why? We see it already. It will become a homeless industrial complex. It already is in New York State, and in most states it is. We don't solve the homeless problem because it makes money for us all. Not all from us all, I'm sorry. It makes money for the elites and the people in government. It is now an industrial complex. They will not solve the problem. But what you're saying is accurate. You're right. So here's how we do it. There are two ways we can make this work. We support companies that will literally build these specific buildings. And these buildings are being done in parts of the Bronx right now when they're working. One of them is called the Jericho Project. You have to build a building, to your point, but it has to be specific, meaning it's a building that is for homeless veterans with TBI and PTSD, or it is a building that's specifically for homeless single moms, or it is a building for people who have schizophrenia, or it's a building for people who are addicted to opioids. Insert thing here, right? And experts know which one that should be, but it must be a specialized building for those types of people that work best for those communities. As an example, if it's for single moms, the second floor is actually small, tiny apartments for them to get themselves back together. If you've been homeless, anyone knows the homeless world, many people, once they've been homeless for many years, this becomes their way of life. They actually don't want to go back into a regular house. They like smaller places. So allow small single homes to be built. Most departments of buildings will not allow that. You have to make them allow that and make that happen. So create tiny apartments inside this building. That's step one. The first floor is a place to socialize. Again, people who are homeless, as I'm sure you know, since you seem to know the world, they often can't socialize anymore. They don't know how to do it. They've lost the ability to socialize well. So the first floor becomes a place for them to socialize again, get back into the idea of just talking to people, not yelling and screaming, having conversations. And the bottom floor and the basement is services. Services might be, again, if someone's addicted, it could be addiction services, it could be methadone clinics. If it is someone with schizophrenia, it could be therapists, it could be, psychiatrists, it could be, in theory, I mean, depending how you do it, it could even be a pharmacy, depending on how it works, right? And if it's working moms, it could be a nursery to give the moms a break or allow them to go off to try to find work. Or if it's vets, it could be a place which in Jericho Project, it's actually places where they can get jobs, right? It's resume building services, networking services. 100% you are correct. It can work. It just can't be done by government, which means it has to be incentivized for the private people to come in and do it. Most don't want to do that. Here's how you do it. You allow them to charge rent. And the rent is very simple. The rent is 1/3 of whatever the person makes. That's it. If they make no money, it's zero. They make $100, $150. It is 1/3 of what they make. So they pay something. It encourages them to go to work so they can pay their way. They can feel like it's not a handout, it's a hand up. And as they get more money and make more money, it makes no sense to stay there anymore because the rent becomes too high. They leave on their own. It gives them strength, it gives them power, it gives them accomplishment. Many of them we find actually stay longer because they want to become mentors to others. They gain some strength, they gain some pride by being mentors to others. So you do that by allowing them to charge some rent. But a second piece, you let them actually name it. Like you make it Ronald McDonald House. Again, people get mad when I think you're always trying to put someone's name on stuff. Yes, because big businesses want to market. I just want them to market to a point where they help the poor and middle class. Right now, they don't. Let them help them. Let them do it. And if they sell the building, they can go one step further if you want to. And this is the way you can do it when it comes to actual public housing. Create rent-to-own projects to where people who are in public housing who finally find themselves out of this and go to a public housing section, they can buy their own homes. Well, why would you do that? Well, you do that because now all of a sudden, when they buy their own homes, the home is sold off. The big business who gets the cash, give them a tax break. And again, people get mad. Oh, you and your tax breaks. You're giving the big business a break. No, I'm not. They're losing money on the rent-to-own process. So they're gaining money on the tax problem. So you're paying them to do this. No, I'm paying them to give poor people homes. I'm paying them to give people a second chance. The first section you talked about is the one that gets someone back on their feet. And the second one gets them into homes in an ownership mindset. That's how you make it work. And you might go, Larry, how do you know this? Because my mom was an addict. My mom was a felon. I watched her deal with it. I know how this works. You are correct in what you're saying. It just can't be government because government will just make it guaranteed an industrial complex. People start grifting. There's a monopoly. You're going to have one place to go versus many. If you have many places to go, the people who suck, no one will go there. They'll lose all their money. You'll have to be good or people won't go there. When it's government, there's one option and they have to go there. I hope that answers your question.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll move on to the next question. This is a question from Integral saying, Mr. Sharpe, what are your thoughts on universal health care, and do you think that it is achievable in the United States?
Universal health care is achievable, but it can't be a monopoly, right? The idea of just having Medicare for all will become VA for all. And if you are a veteran, you know how crappy that is. It is terrible. Veterans are dying at a higher rate than non-veterans. The VA system is a disaster and embarrassment. Even though, to be forward, I didn't support Trump, but I will give him credit for this. He made the VA system better. So now instead of being absolutely horrible, it's just terrible. It's still a terrible system. If you break your leg or something, the VA system is pretty good, but anything else, it's terrible. It's terrible on long-term care. It's terrible on cancer. It's terrible on heart disease. It's terrible on medical care. Mental health care. It's nothing but bad. That's what will happen. You can do it as long as you make it a public option. So as long as you have it compete against some voluntary idea to having private insurance, I think it can work. But you have to have a competitive private market too. You do that, it'll work. And to be forward, we're never going to go there. And we're never going to go Medicare for all. And let me be very forward why. The wealthy talk about Medicare for all day long. The wealthy left. The right never talk about that. The wealthy left do. They talk about it all the time. Medicare for all is the right answer. They don't mean Medicare for all. They mean Medicare for you. They're not giving up their private doctors. They all go to private doctors. I know. I live in New York City. I know them. They don't go insurance. They get catastrophic insurance and they pay for private doctors. In fact, if you live in a major city, try to find a Medicare, Medicaid doctor in your city. And when you find one, try to get an appointment that isn't 3 weeks out. And when you get to the appointment, try to get there on time and see if you get on time. Your appointment's at 3, you get seen at 4:45. It's 5 minutes, and then immediately When you're done, it's either a procedure, a prescription, or a test. Every time. Why? That's how they get paid. The system is set to where you're not the customer, the government's the customer, you're in the way. It is, and that's what the VA does. It is a disaster. You don't want an only Medicare for all system, and neither do the wealthy. You want a public option so everyone can be covered, yes, plus a private sector that would work well. Those together, yes, you can do it.
Okay, we'll move to the next question. It is a question from Master, who said, do you worry about growing anti-white and anti-male rhetoric from leftist movements?
I do. It is, sadly, the people who spend time doing that believe in their hearts that they're somehow combating Nazis. They're not. They're making Nazis. They're making people hate them. It's not a good look, right? Be very forward. I am not saying there's no racism. I'm not saying any of that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the reality of it is we are spending too much time in this country blaming the average white guy for the problems of white elites. That's the problem, right? People say that, well, it's the patriarchy. No, it isn't. It's the 1% patriarchy. That's accurate, right? The 1% of the country, most of it is white males. That's true. There are less white males than there were before, and there are females. They exist, absolutely. It's not as bad as it was, but it's still mostly white males in the 1%. But that leaves 99% of white guys who are not part of this. Why are you beating them up? It is a terrible idea. If you want to beat up the 1%, I'm all in, do it. You want to beat up the average white guy on the street who's struggling the same way you are? That makes no sense. He should be your ally, not your enemy. It is a terrible idea. You're only going to push him into the arms of the bad guys. And I think you see that all the time.
Okay, it looks like we have their next question is going to be, do you support drug legalization as the first step into combating and taking down the Mexican drug this is
that one already.
Yes, this is the question. I happened to write it down in my list. My fault. We have Omen. What? Go ahead.
So I was asked. So I saw in the newest Libertarian Party's platform from 2020 that there had been there was a statement about the need to support freedom of association in more strongly, but there was also a statement of the need for the government to protect human rights. Now, I am wondering if the Libertarian Party, or more broadly, the Libertarian movement, seems a little bit undecided about the keeping the Civil Rights Act open and trying to keep some of these anti-discrimination laws in place when they seem to be strongly moving in sort of an anti-civil rights direction. I'm just wondering if how you feel about that.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. I think Libertarian Party is almost always broken, right? The reality of it is we were a party that was started as an activist party. So we still have that in our DNA as a party. So we're very much activists and screaming, yelling, and all kind of stuff. So yeah, I think we're actually torn on that right now. I think we're torn on abortion. I think we're torn on civil rights. I think the party is in almost like a civil war right now. I think your assessment is an accurate assessment. We are struggling right now to find the right answer because, ideologically, we would like there to be no protected classes, right? We'd like everyone to be free and everything to be great. We'd like that. But there are systemic issues. You can't get around that, right? So both of those things are true. So I think you're right. We suffer for that. Your assessment's correct. We are struggling right now to find out what the answer is. So what I would ask you is, when someone's running, ask that libertarian where they stand on that issue, because they could be either side easily.
Where can I ask a follow-up question? Where would you say you fall on that?
We have another question here,
side?
actually.
Oh,
we are
sorry.
out of time. We have 2 minutes remaining, so I will give it the final question. This is a softball from Mick Chicken, who says, what do you think about anthropology?
It was a useless degree. That's what my degree was in college. I love anthropology. It's great. It's fun. I enjoy it, but it didn't help me my life at all. It was a nice degree, but I've literally taught at the graduate level as a guest instructor at both Yale and at Columbia, and it's business, and I'm a business consultant. I've never used my anthropology degree ever. So while I like it, it's fun, it wasn't the right degree.
Very good. And so I just wanted to thank you for joining the Debate Politics Discord. And I have one question to ask you. Did you have fun?
I always do. Absolutely. I've done over 500 events as I've been running for office. I do all of them live with no notes, because whatever you hear from me, you should believe me. I talked about transparency. I give you transparency. I answered questions regardless of who the person was. I know some people didn't like my answers. Some people did like my answers. But you got what I actually think. You got what I believe. And I hope that whether people think I was right or wrong, I hope they know that my intentions are good. I want people to be better. I want our country to be better. And if you have a problem, I would rather us come up with solutions and talk about it together and go back and forth than just yell, other guy bad. And that's where we are right now. By the way, please follow me on all the things internet. Larry Sharpe YouTube, Larry Sharpe Twitter, Larry Sharpe Facebook, Larry Sharpe Instagram, Larry Sharpe everything.
Well, I thank you all very much for joining, and feel free to hang out, do as you please, join other channels. This has been a Debate Politics AMA, and have a great